The fluorescent lights of Sterling Grove Market cast a bright glow over rows of premium products. Richard Bennett pushed his cart down the wine aisle, studying labels with mild interest. The store buzzed with pre-holiday shoppers, everyone preparing for the season's festivities. His daughter Natalie skipped beside him, her red velvet dress swishing with each step. At 8 years old, she radiated the kind of joy that made Richard grateful every single day. Since losing his wife Beverly 3 years ago, Natalie had been his anchor, his reason to keep going when grief threatened to pull him under. "Daddy, can I go look at the candy by the registers?" Natalie asked, her brown eyes wide with hope. Richard smiled. "Stay where I can see you. We're leaving in 5 minutes." Natalie nodded and bounded away, her black braids bouncing. Richard returned his attention to selecting a suitable wine for Christmas dinner. He had everything else already planned: prime rib, lobster tails, all the traditional sides. Money was no object. His tech company had just closed another major deal, pushing his net worth past the 50 million mark. But standing in this upscale store, surrounded by abundance, Richard sometimes felt hollow. Beverly would have hated the extravagance. She'd always believed in balance, in remembering where they came from. Near the checkout lanes, Natalie paused. She'd been reaching for a peppermint when she heard a small voice, tight with disappointment. "But Mama, what about the turkey?" Natalie turned. A little boy, maybe 6 years old, stood beside a woman who was carefully counting coins from her purse. The woman wore a jacket that had seen better days, her jeans frayed at the hems. Her face carried the kind of exhaustion that came from working too hard for too little. "Tyler, baby, I told you," the woman said softly, her voice breaking. "We can't afford a turkey this year. But I got chicken legs on sale. We'll make it special, I promise." The boy's face fell. "But it won't be Thanksgiving without turkey." "I know, sweetie. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry." Natalie's chest tightened. She'd never heard such sadness in a mother's voice. The woman wasn't crying, but Natalie could tell she wanted to. The little boy hugged his mother's leg, trying to be brave. Without thinking, Natalie ran back to her father. "Daddy, Daddy." She grabbed his hand, pulling him toward the front of the store. "What's wrong?" Richard set down the wine bottle, instantly alert. "Are you hurt?" "No, but Daddy, there's a lady and her little boy, and she said she can't buy a turkey." The words tumbled out fast. She was counting her money and she looked so sad, and the little boy looked sad too, and they're going to eat chicken instead, and... Richard followed his daughter's gaze. He spotted them immediately, the woman in the worn jacket, the small boy clutching her hand. They stood in line, their basket containing only basics. Bread, milk, eggs, chicken legs. Nothing extra. Nothing for celebration. Something twisted in Richard's chest. He remembered being that child. Remembered his own mother counting pennies, deciding between heat and food. Remembered the shame of showing up at school after holidays knowing everyone else had feasted while his family scraped by. He'd sworn when he made his fortune that he'd never forget what hunger felt like. What helplessness tasted like. "Please, Daddy," Natalie whispered. "Can we help them?" Richard looked down at his daughter. Beverly's compassion lived on in her. His wife had always seen people, really seen them, not looking past them the way so many did. "Yes," Richard said quietly. "Yes, we can help them." "How?" Natalie asked. Richard's mind worked quickly. Simply handing them money would embarrass the woman. He could see pride in the set of her shoulders, in the way she held her head high despite circumstances. She didn't want pity. She wanted dignity. "Let me think," Richard said. "Stay here for a moment." He approached the front registers looking for a manager. A middle-aged man in a company vest was directing a new cashier. "Excuse me," Richard said. "Are you the manager?" "Yes, sir. Mr. Patterson. How can I help you?" Richard gestured for him to step aside, away from listening ears. He kept his voice low. "See that woman in line 3? The one with the little boy?" Mr. Patterson glanced over discreetly. "Yes. I want to pay for her groceries. Everything she's purchasing, plus add a complete turkey dinner. The whole works. Turkey, stuffing, cranberry sauce, pies, everything. But I need you to do it in a way that doesn't single her out or embarrass her." Mr. Patterson's eyebrows rose. "That's very generous, sir. Can you tell her it's part of a store promotion? A random act of kindness program or something? I don't want her to know it came from me." "Absolutely." Mr. Patterson nodded. "We'll take care of it right away." "Thank you." Richard pulled out his credit card. "Whatever it costs, charge this card. And get the best turkey you have. The biggest one. Consider it done." Richard returned to Natalie, who was practically vibrating with anticipation. "What did you do?" "Watch," he said simply. They stood near the magazine rack, pretending to browse while keeping the woman in view. She'd reached the register now, placing her few items on the belt. The cashier, a young woman with kind eyes, began scanning. Mr. Patterson approached, a warm smile on his face. He spoke to the woman, though Richard couldn't hear the exact words. He saw the woman's expression shift from confusion to disbelief to overwhelming emotion. She covered her mouth with her hand. "I don't understand," they heard her say. "It's our holiday blessing program," Mr. Patterson explained, his voice carrying now. "Random customers are selected to receive a full holiday meal on the store. You've been chosen. But I didn't enter anything." "You don't have to. We select from our regular shoppers. You've been shopping here for months, right?" "Yes, but..." The woman looked around as if searching for cameras or some kind of trick. "There's no catch, miss. Just our way of spreading some holiday cheer. Now, let me get someone to help you pick out that turkey and all the fixings." Tears spilled down the woman's face. Her son tugged her hand. "Mama, does this mean we get turkey?" "Yes, baby." She knelt down, hugging him tight. "Yes, we get turkey." Natalie gripped her father's hand. "Daddy," she's crying. "Happy tears," Richard said, his own throat tight. "Those are happy tears." They watched as store employees helped the woman and her son select everything they needed. The cart filled with food, a beautiful turkey, boxes of stuffing, fresh vegetables, bakery pies. The little boy's face glowed with excitement, pointing at items and bouncing with each addition. "Can we really have all this?" the boy kept asking. "Yes, Tyler. We really can." When everything was packed and loaded, the woman stood at the exit, wiping her eyes. She turned back to Mr. Patterson. "Thank you. You have no idea what this means. I've been working so hard, but it's never enough, and I just wanted my son to have one nice memory this year. Thank you so much." "You're very welcome," Mr. Patterson said. "Merry Christmas." "Merry Christmas." The woman and her son left, pushing their cart full of hope into the parking lot. Richard felt Natalie lean against him. "That was a good thing, right, Daddy? That was a very good thing. Can we see if she's okay?" "Natalie, she doesn't know we helped. It needs to stay that way." "I know. But can we just make sure she makes it to her car safe? Please?" Richard understood. His daughter needed to see the story through. "All right. Let's finish our shopping first." They completed their own purchases quickly. As they headed to the parking lot, Richard spotted the woman loading bags into an old sedan. The car had a dent in the side and looked like it had seen many hard miles. The woman worked efficiently, her son helping carry lighter items. When everything was loaded, she paused. She looked up at the sky, taking a deep breath. Then she did something that made Richard's chest constrict. She closed her eyes and pressed her hands together, lips moving in silent prayer. "Thank you," her posture said. "Thank you for this miracle." "Daddy," Natalie whispered. "She's praying." "I see that, sweetheart." They watched as the woman finished, wiped her eyes one more time, and climbed into her car. Tyler was already buckled in the back, visible through the window, hugging a loaf of French bread like it was a teddy bear. The sedan started with a cough, then pulled out of the parking lot. Richard and Natalie stood in silence for a moment. Around them, other shoppers rushed past, focused on their own concerns. None of them knew what had just happened. None of them knew how one small act had changed everything for a struggling mother and her son. "Can we help them again?" Natalie asked. Richard looked down at his daughter. "What do you mean?" "I mean, we helped them today. But what about tomorrow? What about next week?" It was a profound question from an 8-year-old. Richard had spent 3 years buried in work and grief, barely looking beyond his own pain. But Natalie, with her mother's heart, saw clearly. One meal was good. But one meal didn't change a life. "I don't know," Richard admitted. "But maybe we can figure something out." They walked to Richard's car, a sleek Mercedes that cost more than some people earned in 2 years. He loaded their groceries while Natalie climbed into her seat. As they drove home, Richard's mind worked. He had resources. He had connections. He had money. What he needed was information. "Natalie," he said carefully, "if we wanted to help that family more, we'd need to be smart about it. We can't just give them money. That wouldn't be right." "Why not?" "Because people need to earn their own way. It's about dignity. Your mother taught me that. She said the best help is the kind that gives people a chance to help themselves." Natalie considered this. "So we need to give them a chance?" "Exactly. But how do we do that if we don't know them?" Richard smiled. "That's what I need to figure out." They spent the rest of the drive in comfortable silence. But Richard's mind never stopped working. By the time they pulled into their gated community, past houses decorated with elaborate light displays, he'd made a decision. He was going to find out who that woman was. Not to intrude on her privacy, not to make her uncomfortable, but to see if there was a way to create opportunity. If she worked hard, she deserved a chance. And if Richard could provide that chance, he would. It's what Beverly would have wanted. It's what was right. That evening, after Natalie was in bed, Richard sat in his study. He called Mr. Patterson at home, apologizing for the intrusion. "I need a favor," Richard said. "That woman from today. Is she a regular customer?" "She is. Comes in every week, always carefully budgeting." "Can you tell me her name?" There was a pause. "Sir, I'm not sure I should share customer information. I understand your concern. But I'm not trying to cause problems. I want to help. Really help, not just with one meal. But to do that, I need to know if there's a genuine need and opportunity." Another pause. "Her name is Simone Crawford. She pays with a debit card linked to a local credit union. That's all I can tell you." "That's enough. Thank you, Mr. Patterson." Richard hung up and opened his laptop. Simone Crawford. It was a start. Richard spent the next 3 days researching. Not digging into private records, nothing invasive, but looking at what was publicly available. What he found painted a picture of resilience and struggle. Simone Crawford, age 32. Single mother. Tyler Crawford, age 6, enrolled at Lincoln Elementary School. Simone worked 2 jobs. Mornings at a diner called Betty's Kitchen, evenings cleaning office buildings. Her social media was sparse but revealing. A few photos of Tyler at the park at his kindergarten graduation. Posts celebrating small victories, Tyler's good report card, a plant she'd managed to keep alive, a sunset that caught her attention. No posts complaining. No posts asking for help. No dramatic declarations or attention-seeking behavior. Just a woman living her life trying to make things work. Richard found a portfolio website she'd created years ago. Graphic design samples, good ones. Professional logos, elegant layouts. At the bottom, a note, currently unavailable for freelance work. He dug deeper. Found an old newspaper article from 4 years ago. Simone Crawford had won a community college scholarship for design. She'd been pursuing her degree while working part-time. Then nothing. The trail went cold. Richard could guess what happened. Pregnancy. A child to support. Dreams deferred or abandoned entirely. On the 4th day, Richard called his executive assistant Grace into his office. Grace Thompson had worked with Richard for 7 years. She was sharp, efficient, and most importantly, trustworthy. She'd helped Beverly organize charity events and never questioned when Richard wanted to do something unusual. "I need your help with a project," Richard said. Grace sat down, pulling out her tablet. "Of course. What kind of project?" "A personal one. But potentially expanding into the company." Richard explained what he'd witnessed at the store. He told Grace about Simone's background, her skills, her situation. "I want to create a position," he said. "Something legitimate, not charity disguised as work. We need graphic design support for the marketing department. The work is real. I want to offer it to her properly, through official channels." Grace listened carefully. "And she doesn't know you were involved with the grocery store situation?" "No. And I want to keep it that way for now." "You think she'd refuse if she knew?" "I think she'd question the motives. I need this to be about her skills, not pity." Grace nodded slowly. "I can work with that. What's the timeline?" "As soon as possible. Post the position publicly, but reach out to her directly through her portfolio contact information. Tell her we found her work online and were impressed." "Salary range?" Richard named a figure that was competitive for the position but not suspiciously high. Enough to make a real difference in Simone's life, but not so much that it would seem like charity. "Benefits too," Richard added. "Health insurance, paid time off, the works. Standard package." "Got it. I'll handle it personally. Thank you, Grace." After Grace left, Richard stood at his office window, looking out over the city. His building sat downtown, 20 stories of glass and steel. From here he could see everything: the wealthy neighborhoods with their manicured lawns, the struggling areas with their worn buildings. Somewhere out there, Simone was probably at work. Serving coffee at the diner or scrubbing floors in an empty office. Working herself to exhaustion to provide for her son. Richard's phone buzzed. A text from Natalie, sent by the nanny since his daughter wasn't allowed a phone yet. "Did you find a way to help them?" He smiled and texted back. "Working on it. Love you." Love you too, Daddy. That evening, Richard picked Natalie up from school himself. She climbed into the car, backpack dragging, and immediately launched into a story about her day. And then Jeremy said that dinosaurs couldn't have been real because they're too big, but I told him that blue whales are huge and they're real, so size doesn't matter, and Mrs. Henderson said I was right and… Richard listened, making appropriate sounds of interest. But part of his mind remained on Simone Crawford. He hoped she'd respond to Grace's outreach. He hoped she'd take the interview seriously. Most of all, he hoped this would work, that it wouldn't blow up in a way that hurt her or made her feel manipulated. Daddy, you're not listening, Natalie said. I am. Blue whales and dinosaurs. No, I'm past that now. I was talking about the Christmas pageant. Sorry, sweetheart. Tell me again. Natalie sighed dramatically. The Christmas pageant. It's in 3 weeks. I'm going to be an angel. You're coming, right? Of course I'm coming. Good. Because Tyler's going to be a shepherd. Richard nearly swerved the car. What? Who? Tyler. From the grocery store. He goes to my school, Daddy. I saw him today at recess. He's in the first grade class. Richard's hands tightened on the steering wheel. You talked to him? A little bit. He was by himself, so I asked if he wanted to play. He's really nice. He told me about his turkey that his mom got, and how they're going to have the best Thanksgiving ever. Richard's chest felt tight. That's good. That's really good. Can he come over to play sometime? We'll see. That means no. That means we'll see, Natalie. I need to meet his mother first, make sure she's comfortable with it. Oh. Natalie slumped in her seat. I guess that makes sense. They drove home in silence. Richard's mind raced. Tyler went to Natalie's school. The connection was already forming, had formed naturally without any manipulation on his part. Maybe that was a sign. Maybe this was meant to happen. Or maybe he was reading too much into coincidence. At home, Richard made dinner while Natalie did homework. They'd established routines after Beverly died, little patterns that gave structure to their days. Richard cooked, Natalie set the table. They ate together, no phones or distractions. Then Natalie had bath time while Richard cleaned up. These quiet domestic moments grounded him, reminded him what mattered. Later, after Natalie was asleep, Richard checked his email. There was a message from Grace marked urgent. She responded. Interview scheduled for Thursday at 2 p.m. Thought you'd want to know. Richard sat back in his chair. Thursday. 3 days away. He could sit in on the interview. It would be natural for the CEO to meet potential hires, especially for positions that would interact with multiple departments. But would that be fair to Simone? Would his presence add pressure? He decided he'd observe only. Let the marketing director conduct the interview properly. Richard would just be another face in the room, evaluating her skills objectively. If she earned the position, she earned it. If she didn't, he'd have to accept that and find another way to help that didn't compromise professional integrity. The next morning, Richard woke early. He went for a run through his neighborhood, past houses worth millions, past lives of comfort and ease. He thought about the choices that had brought him here. Hard work, yes. Intelligence and determination, absolutely. But also luck. The right opportunities at the right time. Mentors who believed in him. A wife who supported his dreams. What if he'd had Simone's circumstances? A child to support alone, no degree completed, no connections to leverage? Would he have made it? Or would he be working 2 jobs, counting pennies, choosing between electricity and groceries? By Thursday, Richard was nervous. He disguised it well, going through his morning meetings with his usual focus. But when 2 p.m. approached, he felt his pulse quicken. The marketing director, Janet Hughes, met him outside the conference room. The candidate is in the lobby. Grace vetted her portfolio. It's impressive work. Good. Let's see if she interviews as well as she designs. They entered the conference room. Richard took a seat at the far end of the table, positioned as an observer rather than an interrogator. At 2 p.m. exactly, Grace opened the door. Miss Crawford is here. Send her in. Simone Crawford walked into the room and Richard saw her clearly for the first time. She was beautiful in an understated way. Natural hair pulled back in a neat bun, minimal makeup, a blue dress that was professional but clearly not expensive. She carried a portfolio case and held herself with quiet confidence. Her eyes swept the room, landing briefly on Richard before returning to Janet. If she recognized him from the grocery store, she gave no sign. Why would she? They'd never actually met. Miss Crawford, thank you for coming, Janet said warmly. Please sit down. I'm Janet Hughes, Marketing Director. This is our CEO, Richard Bennett. He sits in on key hires. Thank you for the opportunity. Simone's voice was steady, professional. She shook hands with both of them before sitting. Richard noticed her hands trembled slightly. Nervous but hiding it well. Let's start with your background, Janet said. I see you studied graphic design but didn't complete your degree? That's correct. I had to put my education on hold due to personal circumstances. But I've continued learning on my own, taking online courses when I can, keeping up with design trends and software updates. What made you pursue graphic design originally? Simone's face softened. I've always loved the way visual communication can tell stories. A good logo, a well-designed layout, it speaks to people without words. I wanted to be part of creating that. And what have you been doing professionally? I work in food service currently, but I've done freelance design work when opportunities arise. Small projects for local businesses mostly. I've brought my portfolio if you'd like to see it. Absolutely. Simone opened her case and spread samples across the table. Richard leaned forward, studying them genuinely now, setting aside everything else. The work was good. Really good. Clean lines, smart color choices, concepts that showed both creativity and commercial awareness. Janet asked technical questions. Simone answered competently, demonstrating knowledge of current design software, understanding of brand strategy, awareness of accessibility standards. Richard watched her handle each question with growing respect. This wasn't someone who'd let her skills atrophy. Despite working 2 jobs, despite raising a child alone, she kept learning, kept growing. Why are you interested in this position specifically? Janet asked. Simone took a breath. I'm interested because it would allow me to use my skills in a meaningful way. I believe in the work your company does, the technology you create. And I'm interested because I need a career, not just a job. I have a son. I want to show him that hard work and education matter, that you can build something even when life gets difficult. Her honesty was striking. No flowery language, no pretense. Just truth. Richard spoke for the first time. Tell me about a project that challenged you. Something where the first solution didn't work and you had to adapt. Simone looked at him directly. I was designing a logo for a restaurant. The owner wanted something traditional, but the restaurant was in a neighborhood that was changing, attracting younger customers. My first design was exactly what he asked for, but it didn't reflect where the business was heading. I had to convince him to trust me, to let me show him options that honored tradition while embracing evolution. The final logo incorporated classic elements in a modern style. The restaurant's business increased 30% in 6 months. And how did you get him to trust you? Richard asked. I listened first. I showed him I understood what he valued, what he was afraid of losing. Then I showed him we could keep those things while still moving forward. Richard nodded slowly. It was a good answer. More than that, it revealed character. She understood people, not just design. The interview continued for another 20 minutes. By the end, Richard knew Janet would offer Simone the position. After Simone left, Janet turned to Richard. She's perfect for this. I want to hire her. Then do it. Make the offer today. Really? Don't you want to see other candidates? We've had that posting up for 2 weeks with minimal response. She's qualified, she's motivated, and she needs the opportunity. Make the offer. Janet smiled. Consider it done. Richard returned to his office. Through his window he could see the parking lot. Simone emerged from the building, walking to her old sedan. She got in, sat for a moment, then pressed her hands to her face. She was crying again. But like before, they looked like happy tears. Simone accepted the position. She started the following Monday, and from Richard's perspective, watching from appropriate distance, she dove into the work with impressive dedication. Grace kept him updated. She's good, Richard. Really good. Janet's thrilled. She finished in 2 days what usually takes a week. How's she adjusting to the office? Professionally. Keeps to herself mostly, but friendly when approached. I think she's still processing that this is real. Richard understood that feeling. Sometimes fortune shifted so quickly it felt like a dream. He made it a point not to interact with Simone directly. It wasn't difficult in a company with over 200 employees. He could observe from distance, ensure things were going well without inserting himself inappropriately. Thanksgiving arrived. Richard and Natalie spent it quietly at home, a small gathering with just his parents and sister. His mother cooked her traditional meal, filling the house with warmth and the smell of roasted turkey. I'm grateful for family, Natalie said when they went around the table sharing thanks. And I'm grateful for people who help other people, even when they don't have to. She looked meaningfully at Richard. He smiled back. I'm grateful for you, sweetheart. Later, when his mother pulled him aside while drying dishes, she studied his face. "You look lighter than you have in years." "Do I?" "You do. Something's changed." Richard thought about Simone in the grocery store, about Tyler's disappointed face, about Natalie's compassion. "I think I'm remembering why it matters." "Why what matters?" "Everything." His mother patted his cheek. "Good. Beverly would be glad." The next morning Richard went into the office early. He often did on the day after Thanksgiving, enjoying the quiet building when most employees took the long weekend. He was surprised to find Simone already at her desk. "Morning," he said, pausing near the marketing department area. Simone looked up, startled. "Oh, good morning, Mr. Bennett. You're here early. I wanted to get ahead on the holiday campaign materials." "I hope that's okay." "More than okay. But you're allowed to take time off, you know. It's a holiday." "I know. I'm grateful to be here." She gestured at her workspace, her new computer, the design tools at her disposal. "This is the best job I've ever had." Richard nodded. "We're glad to have you. Your work has been excellent." "Thank you." An awkward pause stretched between them. Richard struggled with the urge to say more, to acknowledge the connection he knew existed, but she didn't. Instead, he simply said, "Enjoy your weekend," and moved on to his office. But the encounter stuck with him. The gratitude in Simone's voice, the slight disbelief that still colored her tone. She was waiting for something to go wrong, for this good fortune to evaporate. He wanted to tell her it was real. That she'd earned this. That sometimes life gave back. December arrived with cold weather and holiday decorations. The office transformed into a festive space, employees contributing to the seasonal atmosphere. Grace coordinated the annual company Christmas party, scheduled for mid-December. "We're doing it at the Grand Hotel Ballroom this year," she informed Richard. "Dinner, dancing, the works. Families are invited." "Sounds good. Will Natalie come?" "Probably. She loves a party." Richard approved the budget and trusted Grace to handle details. He had other concerns: year-end reports, strategic planning for the next quarter, investor meetings. But part of his mind tracked Simone's integration into the company. She'd made friends with a few colleagues. She ate lunch with Janet's team. She smiled more each week, that worried edge fading gradually. 2 weeks before Christmas, Richard picked Natalie up from school and found her bouncing with excitement. "Guess what, guess what, guess what?" "What?" "Tyler's coming to your Christmas party." Richard's hands tightened on the wheel. "How do you know that?" "Because his mom works with you now. He told me at recess. He said his mom got a really good job at a tech company and they're going to the Christmas party and he gets to wear a suit and everything." Richard's mind raced. He'd deliberately not told Natalie about Simone joining the company, wanting to keep those worlds separate until he understood how everything would develop. "Daddy? Isn't that great? Now Tyler and I can be friends outside of school too." "Yes, sweetheart. That's great." But Richard felt something close to panic. The anonymous help had been one thing. The job offer, structured through proper channels, was defensible. But now the families would interact directly, and secrets had a way of surfacing in social situations. He needed a plan. Or maybe he needed to let events unfold naturally, trust that if truth emerged it would be okay. The night of the Christmas party, Richard dressed in a tailored suit. Natalie wore a green velvet dress she'd picked out specifically for the occasion. "Do I look fancy?" she asked, spinning in front of the mirror. "You look beautiful." They arrived at the Grand Hotel fashionably late. The ballroom glittered with lights and decorations. Employees mingled with spouses and children, the atmosphere warm and celebratory. Richard worked the room, greeting people, making small talk. He prided himself on knowing every employee's name, asking about their families, showing genuine interest. He spotted Simone across the room and his breath caught. She wore a simple emerald dress that fit her perfectly. Her hair was down, falling in natural curls around her shoulders. She looked relaxed and happy, laughing at something Janet was saying. Tyler stood beside her in a small suit, looking proud and a bit overwhelmed by the grandeur around him. "Daddy, there they are." Natalie pulled Richard's hand. "Can I go say hi to Tyler?" "Of course." Natalie ran across the room. Richard followed more slowly, timing his approach to seem casual. "Tyler." Natalie reached the boy, who broke into a huge smile. "Natalie, look at my suit. Do I look like a grown-up?" "You look very handsome." Simone turned, noticing Natalie for the first time. "Oh, hello. You must be one of Tyler's classmates." "I'm Natalie. We play together at recess sometimes." "That's wonderful. It's nice to meet you, Natalie." Richard arrived just as Simone was processing the coincidence. Her eyes widened slightly when she saw him. Mr. Bennett. Miss Crawford. I see our children are already friends. So it seems. Small world. Very small. Richard smiled at Tyler. You must be Tyler. I've heard a lot about you. Tyler looked confused. You have. Natalie talks about her friends. She says you're very nice. Oh. Tyler beamed. Thank you. Simone watched this exchange, something calculating in her expression. Not suspicious exactly, but thoughtful. Daddy, can Tyler sit with us at dinner? Natalie asked. That's up to his mother. Simone hesitated. We wouldn't want to intrude on your evening. It's no intrusion. Please join us. The children clearly enjoy each other's company. Mama, please? Tyler added his plea. Well, if you're sure. Absolutely. They found seats together at one of the round tables. Other employees and their families filled the remaining chairs, creating a lively group. Dinner was served. Prime rib, roasted vegetables, decadent desserts. Tyler's eyes went wide at the portions, the elegance of the presentation. Is this how fancy people eat all the time? He whispered to his mother. Simone looked embarrassed, but Richard intervened smoothly. No, this is special. Most of the time, fancy people eat regular food just like everyone else. Tyler seemed relieved. Good. Because this is a lot. Everyone at the table laughed and the tension eased. Richard found himself watching Simone throughout the evening. She was guarded but warming up, clearly unused to social events of this scale. When Janet pulled her into a conversation about a recent project, Simone spoke confidently about her work and Richard felt proud. She'd done this. She'd walked through the door he'd opened and built something real through her own talent and effort. After dinner, music started. A DJ played a mix of holiday classics and contemporary songs. Children ran onto the dance floor first, uninhibited and joyful. Come on, Tyler. Natalie grabbed his hand, pulling him into the crowd of kids. Simone watched them go, a soft smile on her face. He's having the time of his life. Natalie too, Richard said. She's missed having friends over, doing normal kid things. Why hasn't she? Richard chose his words carefully. My wife passed away 3 years ago. We've been finding our footing since then. Oh. Simone's expression filled with sympathy. I'm so sorry. Thank you. It gets easier, but some days are harder than others. I understand that. Maybe not the same situation, but I know what it's like to rebuild. Richard wanted to ask but didn't want to pry. Simone volunteered the information on her own. Tyler's father left when I was pregnant. Just disappeared one day. I found out he'd racked up debt in my name, destroyed my credit, took money from our joint account. By the time I realized what happened, he was gone. That's terrible. It was. For a while I didn't know how I'd survive. But Tyler needed me, so I figured it out. You do what you have to do. Richard saw his own resilience reflected in her words. Different circumstances, same core strength. He's lucky to have you, Richard said quietly. I'm lucky to have him. He keeps me going on hard days. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, watching their children dance. This job, Simone said suddenly, I don't know if I've said it enough, but it changed everything. I was drowning before this. Working myself to exhaustion and still barely making rent. Now I have stability, benefits, a future. I can sleep at night without wondering how I'll pay next month's bills. Richard's chest tightened. You earned it. Your portfolio was excellent, your interview impressive. You got this job on merit. Still, someone had to give me a chance. So thank you for taking that chance. Richard wanted to tell her then. Wanted to explain the connection, the grocery store, all of it. But the moment wasn't right. Not yet. You're welcome, he said simply. The evening continued with dancing and laughter. Richard even allowed himself to be pulled onto the dance floor by Natalie, suffering through an awkward attempt at a contemporary song while his daughter giggled. When he returned to the table, breathless and laughing, he found Simone smiling at him. You're a good sport. I'm a terrible dancer. But you did it anyway because your daughter asked. Every time. Something shifted in that moment. Some barrier lowered. They weren't CEO and employee anymore, not entirely. They were two parents doing their best, finding connection and shared experience. As the party wound down, people began gathering coats and saying goodbyes. Tyler was drooping with exhaustion, fighting to keep his eyes open. Someone had a big night, Simone said, stroking his hair. Best night ever, Tyler mumbled. Can we do this again? We'll see, baby. Richard helped Natalie into her coat. Did you have fun? So much fun. Tyler's the best. Can he come over to our house sometime? We'll arrange something. Simone overheard. That's very kind, but you don't have to do that. I'd like to, Richard said honestly. Natalie needs friends and Tyler seems like a great kid. He is, Simone said fiercely. He's the best. They walked together to the parking lot. The night was cold, snow beginning to fall in light flurries. Christmas lights from surrounding buildings cast colorful reflections on the wet pavement. Richard noticed Simone's car was having trouble starting. The engine turned over sluggishly before finally catching. You might want to get that looked at, he said. It's on the list. Along with about 100 other things. She smiled tiredly. But I'll get there. One step at a time. That's all any of us can do. They said their goodnights. Richard and Natalie watched Simone's car pull away, tail lights disappearing into the snowy evening. I like her, Natalie said. She's nice. She is. And Tyler's lucky to have her as his mom. He definitely is. On the drive home, Natalie fell asleep in her car seat. Richard drove carefully through the snow, his mind replaying the evening. He'd done a good thing. Maybe the execution wasn't perfect, maybe there were complications ahead, but the core of it was right. He'd seen someone in need and helped. He'd created opportunity where none existed. And now, unexpectedly, he'd found connection. Not romance, nothing like that yet, but genuine human connection. A reminder that life continued, that new relationships could form, that the world held more than grief and isolation. It was enough. For now it was more than enough. The week after the Christmas party, Richard found it difficult to focus on work. His mind kept drifting to the conversation with Simone, the way she'd looked at him when discussing second chances, the quiet strength in her voice when she talked about rebuilding. He'd dated a few times since Beverly died. Well-meaning friends set him up and he went through the motions. Dinner at expensive restaurants, polite conversation, good night at the door. Nothing ever sparked. Nothing felt right. This was different. But he couldn't articulate how or why. On Wednesday, Grace knocked on his office door. Do you have a minute? Of course. What's up? Grace closed the door behind her, which usually signaled a sensitive conversation. I want to talk to you about Simone Crawford. Richard's stomach tightened. Is there a problem with her work? No, her work is phenomenal. Janet wants to give her a raise already, which I told her to hold off on until the standard 6-month review. But that's not why I'm here. Then what? Grace sat down, studying Richard's face. I've known you a long time, Richard. I knew you and Beverly together. I watched you grieve, and I watched you slowly come back to life. Grace. Let me finish. I'm not saying this to pry or to make you uncomfortable. But I've noticed how you look at Simone. And I've noticed that she's starting to notice too. Richard's jaw tightened. I've been completely professional. I know you have. But feelings exist whether we acknowledge them or not. And this situation, the way you engineered her hiring, the grocery store incident that preceded it, it's complicated. If something develops between you two, people will talk. They'll question whether her job was ever legitimate. It was legitimate. She earned it. I believe you. But not everyone will. And more importantly, Simone might not believe it if she finds out the full story. She seems like someone who values her independence, her achievements. Learning that the CEO orchestrated her employment from the shadows might feel like manipulation, even if that wasn't your intent. Richard stood and walked to the window. Grace was right. He knew she was right. But what was the alternative? Never pursue anything? Pretend he didn't feel drawn to Simone's strength, her resilience, her genuine warmth? What do you suggest? He asked. Tell her the truth. Before things progress. Let her decide with full information whether she wants to be here, whether she wants to explore whatever this might become. And if she gets angry? If she quits? Then she quits. But at least she'll know the truth. And honestly, I think you're underestimating her. She's smart, Richard. She'll appreciate honesty more than protection. After Grace left, Richard sat with his thoughts. The truth was complicated. Yes, he'd helped at the grocery store. Yes, he'd created the job opportunity. But Simone had still earned her position through talent. The work she produced was excellent. Janet would have hired her based on merit alone. Still, the perception mattered. The appearance of impropriety could damage both of them. His phone buzzed. A text from Natalie's school, parent-teacher conferences scheduled for next week. Please sign up for a time slot. Richard pulled up the online form. As he scrolled through available times, he noticed another parent had already signed up for the slot right before his. The name, Simone Crawford. They'd be at the school at the same time. Tyler and Natalie were in different grades but the same elementary school building. Another intersection of their lives, another reminder that their paths were converging whether he planned it or not. Richard signed up for his slot, then an idea occurred to him. A risky idea but one that felt right. He texted Simone's work number. "Hi, this is Richard Bennett. I noticed we both have parent-teacher conferences next Tuesday evening. Would you and Tyler like to grab dinner with me and Natalie afterward? Nothing formal, just pizza or something. The kids keep asking to spend time together." He stared at the message for a full minute before hitting send. His heart raced as he watched the screen, waiting for a response. 3 minutes later, "That sounds nice. Tyler would love it. What time and where?" Relief flooded through him. "How about 6:30 at Mario's Pizza? It's close to the school." "Perfect. See you then." Richard set down his phone, wondering what he'd just set in motion. That weekend, Richard took Natalie to the mall to finish Christmas shopping. She wanted to buy gifts for her grandparents, her teacher, and several friends. "Can I get something for Tyler?" she asked as they browsed the toy store. "Of course. What do you think he'd like?" Natalie studied the shelves seriously. "He told me he likes science. He wants to be a scientist when he grows up and discover new planets." "That's a great dream. So maybe something about space?" They found a telescope kit designed for beginners. Not too expensive but quality enough to actually function. Natalie insisted on adding a book about constellations. "So he can learn all the stars," she explained. At the checkout, the cashier smiled at Natalie. "Someone's getting a great gift. It's for my friend. His mom works really hard and I want him to have something special." Richard felt his chest constrict. His daughter had inherited Beverly's heart, her ability to see people's worth, to want to give rather than just receive. After shopping, they stopped for hot chocolate at a cafe. Natalie swung her legs under the table, sipping carefully from her mug topped with whipped cream. "Daddy, do you like Tyler's mom?" Richard nearly choked on his drink. "What?" "Miss Simone. Do you like her? She seems like a very nice person." "That's not what I mean." Natalie fixed him with a knowing look far too mature for 8 years old. "I mean, do you like her?" "That's a complicated question, sweetheart." "Not really. Either you do or you don't." Richard sighed. There was no hiding anything from Natalie. "I think she's interesting. Smart, kind, strong. But we barely know each other. So you should get to know each other better." "It's not that simple when you're a grown-up." "Why not?" "Because there are other considerations. Work, responsibilities, how our choices affect other people." Natalie thought about this. "But Mom always said that life is too short not to be happy. And you haven't seemed really happy in a long time." "Not until recently." Richard reached across the table, taking his daughter's hand. "When did you get so wise?" "I've always been wise. You just don't always notice." He laughed and it felt good. Genuine. "Fair point. So you'll try? To get to know Miss Simone better?" "We're having dinner with them Tuesday." "That's a start." "Good." Natalie returned to her hot chocolate, satisfied. Tuesday arrived quickly. Richard left work early to make it to Natalie's conference on time. Her teacher, Mrs. Henderson, had only good things to say. Natalie was excelling academically, socially engaged, a positive presence in the classroom. "She's one of those children who makes teaching worthwhile," Mrs. Henderson said. "Bright, curious, empathetic. You should be very proud." "I am. Every day." After the conference, Richard and Natalie waited in the hallway. Parents streamed past, some looking pleased, others concerned. Tyler's conference was scheduled for 15 minutes after Natalie's, giving them time to overlap. Simone appeared at the end of the hall, Tyler beside her. They both wore coats already, clearly planning to head straight to dinner after the meeting. "Hey guys," Simone called. Tyler broke into a run, rushing to Natalie. "Did you get a good report?" Tyler asked. "Yeah, all good stuff. What about you?" "My conference isn't until now." "You'll do great. You're super smart." Tyler beamed at the compliment. Simone reached them, slightly breathless. "Sorry traffic was terrible. I was worried we'd be late." "You're right on time," Richard assured her. "We'll wait out here while you're inside." "Thanks." "Tyler, come on. Let's go hear what Mr. Garcia has to say." After they disappeared into the classroom, Richard and Natalie sat on a bench in the hallway. The school smelled like industrial cleaner and construction paper, familiar and oddly comforting. "Do you think Tyler's nervous?" Natalie asked. "Maybe a little. But I'm sure he's doing fine." 20 minutes later, Simone and Tyler emerged. Simone's face glowed with pride. "All good news. He's reading above grade level and his math scores are excellent. That's wonderful, Richard said sincerely. You should be proud. I am. So proud. She hugged Tyler. Okay, shall we head to dinner? Mario's Pizza was a local institution, family-owned for 3 generations. The restaurant was warm and loud, filled with the scent of baking dough and tomato sauce. Red checkered tablecloths covered every surface, and vintage Italian posters decorated the walls. They squeezed into a booth, kids on one side, adults on the other. A waitress brought menus and cups of water. This place is amazing, Tyler said, eyes wide. Look at that pizza. He pointed to a massive pie being carried past, easily 2 feet across. Should we get one that big? Richard asked. Yes, both children shouted. Simone laughed. Maybe start with a large and see how it goes? They ordered a large combination pizza and let the children choose a dessert for later. While they waited, conversation flowed easily. Tyler told them about his science project on planets. Natalie shared her plans for the Christmas pageant. I'm going to be an angel with gold wings, she explained. And I get to say a whole speech about peace on Earth. That's a big responsibility, Simone said. Are you nervous? A little. But Dad says if I practice enough I'll be great. Your dad is right. Richard watched Simone interact with Natalie. She gave his daughter her full attention, asked follow-up questions, treated Natalie's concerns as legitimate rather than dismissing them as childish. It spoke to her character, her approach to parenting and people. When the pizza arrived, they dug in. Conversation paused temporarily as everyone focused on eating. The pizza was as good as Richard remembered, the cheese perfectly melted, the crust crispy at the edges and soft in the middle. This is the best pizza I've ever had, Tyler declared after his 3rd slice. Better than that place near our old apartment? Simone asked. Way better. Simone looked at Richard. We used to live near a pizza place that honestly should have been condemned. But it was cheap, so we went there sometimes. Things are different now, Richard said. Very different. Still getting used to it, honestly. Having a job I actually like, being able to buy groceries without counting every penny, having time to spend with Tyler instead of working every waking hour. It feels like someone else's life sometimes. You deserve it. Simone met his eyes. Do I? Absolutely. You work hard, you're talented, you're dedicated. All of this is earned. Something flickered across her face. Question. Doubt. Richard couldn't quite read it. The children finished eating and asked permission to play the vintage arcade games in the back corner. Richard handed them quarters and watched them run off. Alone with Simone, he felt the weight of Grace's advice. Tell her. Tell her now. Can I ask you something? Simone said before he could speak. Of course. The job. When Grace reached out to me, how did she find my portfolio? I hadn't updated that website in over a year. I didn't have it listed anywhere current. Richard's pulse quickened. What do you mean? I mean, it's a very specific thing to find. And then the interview happened so fast and the offer came through so quickly. In my experience, companies usually take weeks for this kind of process. But with your company, everything moved at lightning speed. We needed someone urgently. Maybe. Or maybe someone wanted me hired urgently. 4 reasons that had nothing to do with the marketing department's actual needs. Richard's mouth felt dry. What are you suggesting? Simone leaned forward. I'm not suggesting anything. I'm asking directly. Did you have something to do with me getting that job? Here it was. The moment of truth. Richard could lie, could deflect. But Grace was right. Simone deserved honesty. Yes, he said quietly. I did. Simone sat back, her expression unreadable. Around them, the restaurant continued its cheerful noise, but in their booth, silence stretched between them. Tell me everything, Simone finally said. Her voice was calm, but Richard heard the steel underneath. Richard took a breath. Natalie and I were shopping at Sterling Grove Market the week before Thanksgiving. While I was looking at wine, Natalie wandered to the front of the store. She overheard you and Tyler, heard you tell him you couldn't afford a turkey. Simone's face paled. Oh God. She came to me upset. Asked if we could help. So I arranged with the store manager to pay for your groceries and add a full holiday dinner. Anonymously. I didn't want you to know because I thought it would embarrass you. It does embarrass me. Simone's voice was tight. Knowing that you saw me at my lowest, that you witnessed that moment, that I saw a mother doing her best in difficult circumstances? There's no shame in that. Easy for you to say. You've probably never counted pennies in your life. Actually, I have. Richard kept his voice steady. I grew up poor. Not struggling, not making ends meet. Poor. My mother worked 3 jobs. We qualified for food assistance. I wore donated clothes and shoes with holes in them. I know exactly what it feels like to stand in a store and realize you can't afford basic dignity. Simone looked at him, reassessing. I didn't know that. Most people don't. I don't advertise it. But it's why I noticed you in the first place, why what I saw struck me so deeply. I remembered being that kid, remembered the shame of having nothing. So you helped out of pity. I helped out of compassion. There's a difference. Simone rubbed her face. And the job. After the grocery store, Natalie kept asking if we could do more to help. I started thinking about what my wife would have done. Beverly always said the best help is creating opportunity, not creating dependency. So I looked you up, found your portfolio online. Your work was genuinely excellent. We legitimately needed a graphic designer. So I asked Grace to reach out. But you orchestrated it. I created an opportunity. You earned the position. Janet interviewed you fairly. Your work since being hired has been outstanding. The job is real, the position is needed, and you got it because you're talented. But I wouldn't have been interviewed at all if you hadn't intervened. Maybe not. Or maybe someone else would have found you eventually. I just accelerated the timeline. Simone was quiet for a long moment, processing. Richard waited, letting her work through it. Why are you telling me this now? She finally asked. Richard chose his words carefully. Because Grace pointed out that I should tell you before things got more complicated. And because you deserve to know the truth. You can decide what to do with that information. What do you mean before things got more complicated? I mean, our children are becoming friends. We're spending time together. And I'd like to spend more time with you if you're open to that. But you should make that decision with full information about how we got here. Simone's eyes widened. You're interested in me? Romantically? I don't know yet. But I think I could be. And I wanted you to know the full story before anything developed. So you're saying you hired me because you were attracted to me? No. I created the job opportunity because I wanted to help, because Natalie asked me to, because I remembered being desperate and powerless. Any attraction came later, after seeing how you carry yourself, how you parent Tyler, how you work. That part is entirely separate. Simone stood abruptly. I need a minute. She walked toward the restroom, leaving Richard alone at the table. He watched her go, his stomach churning. This could go badly. She could quit, take Tyler, disappear from their lives. He'd have to accept that. The children returned from the arcade, flushed and happy. Where's Miss Simone? Natalie asked. Restroom. She'll be back in a minute. Tyler climbed into the booth. This is the best night ever. Can we do this every week? We'll see, buddy. Richard's phone buzzed. A text from an unknown number. I need more time to think. Can you take Tyler home with you tonight? I need to clear my head. I'll pick him up tomorrow. Richard's chest tightened. Simone was overwhelmed enough to ask a near stranger to watch her child. That spoke to how shaken she was. He texted back, of course. He's welcome as long as you need. Are you okay? I will be. Just processing. Thank you. Simone returned to the table, her face composed but her eyes red. She sat down and reached for Tyler. Hey, sweetheart. How would you feel about having a sleepover at Natalie's house tonight? Tyler's face lit up. Really? Can I? If Mr. Bennett doesn't mind. Not at all, Richard said quickly. Natalie would love it. Yes. Both children high-fived each other. But I don't have my pajamas or toothbrush, Tyler said. We can stop by your place and get them, Richard offered. Or we have extras at home. Simone pulled out her phone. I'll text you my address. If you could swing by and grab his overnight bag, I'd appreciate it. Everything's packed and ready by the door. I need to take care of some things tonight. Of course. The rest of dinner was strained but functional. They ordered the dessert, paid the bill, and headed out. Simone gave Tyler a long hug in the parking lot. You be good, okay? Listen to Mr. Bennett and Natalie. I will, Mama. Are you sure you're okay? I'm fine, baby. Just need to handle some grown-up stuff. I'll see you tomorrow. Simone gave Richard her address, then got in her car and drove away. Richard watched her tail lights disappear, worry gnawing at him. Is Miss Simone mad? Natalie asked quietly. Not mad. Just thinking about some things. Did you tell her? About the grocery store? Richard looked at his daughter in surprise. You knew I should tell her? Yeah. Secrets always come out eventually. Mom used to say that. She did. And she was right. They stopped by Simone's apartment to collect Tyler's overnight bag. The building was old but well maintained, the kind of place where working families lived, not fancy but respectable. Richard found the bag exactly where Simone said it would be, just inside the door. At home, Richard set the boys up in the guest room. Tyler marveled at everything. The size of the house, the pool in the backyard, the game room with its collection of board games and video consoles. "You guys are so lucky," Tyler kept saying. Richard helped both children get ready for bed, reading them a story before lights out. After they were asleep, he sat in his study, unable to focus on anything. His phone rang at 10 p.m. Simone's number. "Hello. Hi. Sorry for calling so late. I wanted to make sure Tyler was okay." "He's fine. Fast asleep. He and Natalie played games for 2 hours and wore themselves out." "Good. That's good." Simone paused. "I'm sorry for dumping him on you like that. It wasn't fair. Don't apologize. He's a great kid. And you needed space. There's nothing wrong with that." Another pause. "I've been thinking all evening. About everything you told me. And I'm not sure how I feel yet. Part of me is angry. Not because you helped, but because I didn't know. Because I've been walking around thinking I earned everything on my own merit, and now I find out there was this whole other layer I knew nothing about." "You did earn it, Simone. Your work is excellent. Janet would have hired you without my involvement." "Maybe. But we'll never know for sure, will we? That's the part that bothers me. The uncertainty." Richard understood. He'd taken away her ability to know definitively that she'd succeeded purely on talent. Even if it was true, the doubt would linger. "I'm sorry," he said. "I thought I was helping, but I see now how it might feel like I took something from you instead." "Did you do it because you pitied me?" "No. I did it because I saw an opportunity to make a real difference and because my daughter asked me to help. I did it because I could, and because Beverly always taught me that with resources comes responsibility. Your wife sounds like she was a good person." "She was. You would have liked her." Simone sighed. "I want to be angry. I want to feel manipulated or deceived. But honestly, what you did at the grocery store saved us. That turkey, that food, it meant Tyler had a real Thanksgiving. It meant I didn't have to see disappointment in his eyes. That matters. It mattered then and it matters now. I'm glad. And the job, even if you did engineer the opportunity, I've proven I can do the work. Every project I've completed, every deadline I've met, that's all me. You can't take that away. I wouldn't want to. So here's what I'm thinking. I'm going to keep the job. Because I earned it through my performance regardless of how the door opened. And I'm going to pay you back for the groceries." "Simone, that's not necessary." "It is to me. I need to know I paid my own way. So I'm going to pay you back, monthly installments if I have to, but I'm paying you back." Richard wanted to argue but recognized the futility. "Okay. If that's what you need." "It is." "And about the other thing, the potential attraction or whatever you called it?" "Yes. I need time. This is all too tangled up right now. I can't think about romance or possibilities or any of that when I'm still processing everything else." "I understand. But I don't want the kids to suffer because the adults are complicated. So can we just be friends for now? Let Natalie and Tyler have their friendship, and we'll figure out the rest as we go?" Relief flooded through Richard. She wasn't cutting him off entirely, wasn't removing herself from their lives. "That sounds perfect." "Good. I'll pick Tyler up tomorrow after work. Around 6. "That works. Take all the time you need." "Thank you. For being honest with me. For telling me the truth even though it was uncomfortable. That means more than you probably realize." After they hung up, Richard sat in the quiet of his study. Things weren't resolved, not entirely. But they weren't destroyed either. Simone needed time to process, needed to reclaim her sense of agency and accomplishment. He could give her that. And maybe, if they were both patient, something real could develop. Not built on secrets or manipulation, but on honesty and genuine connection. It was a start. A complicated, messy start, but a start nonetheless. 3 weeks passed. Richard kept his distance professionally, interacting with Simone only when necessary for work. She'd started paying him back for the groceries, small amounts direct deposited into an account each week. He'd tried to refuse, but she was adamant. "I pay my own way," she'd said firmly. So he accepted the money, then quietly donated equivalent amounts to a local family shelter. It honored her need for independence while still allowing him to help others. The Christmas pageant arrived and both families attended. Tyler looked proud in his shepherd costume, complete with a crooked staff. Natalie delivered her angel speech perfectly, her clear voice ringing through the auditorium about peace and goodwill. Afterward, in the crowded lobby, Simone found Richard. They were wonderful. They really were. Tyler practiced his lines every night. He was so nervous he'd forget. Natalie was the same. I must have heard that speech 50 times. They stood together, watching their children accept congratulations from teachers and other parents. The kids were inseparable now, attached at the hip during school and desperate for playdates after. "I've been thinking," Simone said. "About what you said. About spending time together, letting the kids be friends while the adults figure things out." "Yes. How would you feel about Thanksgiving next week? At my place. Nothing fancy, just dinner. Tyler and I usually spend it alone, but he's been asking if Natalie could come. And I thought, if you're not doing anything." Richard's schedule was technically booked. His parents expected him and Natalie. But something about Simone's invitation, the olive branch it represented, made him want to accept. "Let me check with my parents. They might be okay with doing something earlier in the day. Could we confirm by tomorrow?" "Of course." Richard called his mother that evening. "How would you feel about moving our Thanksgiving to lunch instead of dinner?" "What? What's going on?" "Natalie has a friend who invited us to dinner. Single mom, just her and her son. I think it would be good for Natalie to experience a different kind of Thanksgiving." His mother was quiet for a moment. "This wouldn't happen to be the woman you hired, would it? The one Grace mentioned?" "Grace talks too much. Grace cares about you. And yes, lunch works fine. Your father and I can do our big meal at midday." "But Richard?" "Yes. Be careful. I know you're lonely. I know you want connection. But make sure you're not moving too fast because you're desperate for something your wife used to provide." "I'm not, Mom. This is different." "Okay. I believe you. Bring Natalie by around noon. We'll eat early." Thanksgiving Day was cold and overcast. Richard and Natalie spent the afternoon with his parents, enjoying his mother's traditional spread. But Natalie kept checking the clock, excited for the evening ahead. "Can we bring dessert?" she asked. "It's polite to bring something." "Good thinking. What should we bring?" "Pie. Everyone likes pie." They stopped at a bakery on the way to Simone's apartment, picking up apple and pumpkin pies. Natalie carried them carefully, treating them like precious cargo. Simone's apartment was small but immaculate. She decorated with autumn colors: orange and yellow tablecloth, paper turkey centerpiece, fall leaves scattered artfully across surfaces. "Welcome," she said, ushering them inside. The apartment smelled amazing, like roasted turkey and herbs. Tyler bounced with excitement. "Natalie, come see my room. I cleaned it special for you." The children disappeared, leaving the adults alone. "Your place is lovely," Richard said. "It's small, but it's ours." Simone gestured to the tiny kitchen. "I hope you're hungry. I may have cooked too much food." "I'm always hungry for good food." Richard helped her set the table, squeezing 4 place settings into a space meant for 2. It was cozy, intimate in a way his large dining room never was. When they sat down to eat, Simone asked everyone to share what they were grateful for. "I'm grateful for my best friend Natalie," Tyler said immediately. "And for my mom, who's the best mom ever." Natalie went next. "I'm grateful for my dad," for Tyler, "and for Miss Simone, who makes really good turkey." Richard shared his gratitude for family, for second chances, for new friendships. Simone went last. Her voice was thick with emotion. "I'm grateful for so much this year. For this job that changed our lives. For Tyler's health and happiness. For people who showed us kindness when we needed it most. For this moment, right here, sharing a meal with people who make us feel less alone." Richard's throat tightened. The honesty in her words, the vulnerability, it spoke to something deep inside him. They ate slowly, savoring the food and conversation. Tyler told elaborate stories about his school day adventures. Natalie shared her plans for Christmas break. The adults listened, chiming in with questions and laughter. After dinner, while Simone was clearing plates, Richard stood to help. In the tiny kitchen, they moved around each other carefully, hands occasionally brushing, proximity creating a tension that hadn't existed before. "You didn't have to do all this," Richard said quietly. "The cooking, the hospitality. I wanted to. You and Natalie have been so kind to us. I wanted to give back. You don't owe us anything." "I know. But I wanted to anyway." They were standing close now, close enough that Richard could smell her perfume, something light and floral. Close enough to see the gold flecks in her brown eyes. Simone looked up at him. "I've made peace with it, you know. The whole situation. The grocery store, the job, all of it." "Have you?" "Mostly. I realized that you could have done nothing. You could have walked past us, forgotten about us 5 minutes later. Most people would have. But you didn't. You saw us and you cared enough to act. Maybe the execution wasn't perfect, but the intention was pure." I can forgive imperfect execution when the heart behind it is good. Thank you for saying that. And the job? I've proven to myself that I earned my place there. My work speaks for itself. Janet told me last week that I'm the best designer they've had in 5 years. That's not because of charity. That's because of talent. I never doubted that. Simone smiled. I know. But I needed to prove it to myself. They finished cleaning in comfortable silence. When they returned to the living room, they found Tyler and Natalie on the floor, building an elaborate structure with blocks. Look what we made, Tyler called. It's a castle for Thanksgiving turkeys. That's very creative, Simone said. They spent the rest of the evening playing games, watching a holiday movie, enjoying simple togetherness. At 9, Tyler started yawning. Someone's tired, Simone said. Say goodnight to our guests. Tyler hugged Natalie, then surprised Richard by hugging him too. Thank you for coming. This was the best Thanksgiving ever. Richard hugged him back. Thank you for having us. At the door saying goodbye, Simone touched Richard's arm. I meant what I said earlier. About making peace with it all. And I've been thinking that maybe we should try. The thing you mentioned before. What thing? Spending more time together. Getting to know each other better. Seeing if there's something here worth exploring. Richard's heart raced. Are you sure? I'm not sure of anything except that I'd like to try. No pressure, no expectations. Just two people figuring things out. I'd like that. Very much. Good. So maybe next weekend we could do something? Adults only? My neighbor owes me a babysitting favor. That sounds perfect. Richard and Natalie drove home through the dark streets. His daughter fell asleep quickly, exhausted from the busy day. Richard's mind spun with possibilities. This felt different from his previous attempts at dating. Natural, unforced. Built on a foundation of genuine respect and shared experience. It scared him. Opening himself to someone new, risking his heart again after loss. But it also felt right, like the universe was gently nudging him forward. Beverly would have liked Simone. He was sure of it. They shared similar values, hard work, resilience, putting their children first. Beverly would have told him to take the chance, to not let fear keep him isolated. I'm trying, Bev, he whispered into the darkness. I'm trying to move forward while still honoring what we had. The next day at work, Richard found himself watching for Simone. Not obsessively, just aware of her presence. She was in a meeting with Janet's team, presenting new concepts for the spring marketing campaign. Through the conference room glass, he could see her speaking confidently, pointing to designs on the screen. This was her element, where her talent shone brightest. Grace appeared at his elbow. You're doing that thing again. What thing? That thing where you stare at her and try to pretend you're not staring. Richard moved away from the window. We're going out next weekend. Really? That's progress. She said she wants to try. See if there's something worth exploring. And how do you feel about that? Terrified. Hopeful. Guilty. Guilty? About moving on. About finding someone new. Grace's expression softened. Beverly wouldn't want you to be alone forever. You know that, right? I know. But knowing and feeling are different things. Give yourself permission to be happy, Richard. You deserve it. Beverly would be the first person to tell you that. That evening, Richard pulled out his old photo albums. Pictures of Beverly from throughout their relationship. College sweethearts, their wedding day, the birth of Natalie, family vacations and everyday moments. He ran his fingers over her face in the photos. She'd been beautiful, with bright eyes and an infectious laugh. She'd supported his dreams, believed in him when he doubted himself. I'm not replacing you, he said to her image. I could never do that. But I think maybe I'm ready to make space for someone new. Someone who could add to our lives rather than trying to recreate what we had. The photos didn't answer. But in his heart, Richard felt a release. Permission to move forward without guilt, to honor the past while embracing the future. It was time. Time to stop just surviving and start truly living again. Saturday arrived cold and clear. Richard had made reservations at a restaurant downtown, upscale but not pretentious. Somewhere they could talk without shouting over noise, somewhere nice enough to show effort but not so fancy it created pressure. He picked Simone up at 7. She answered the door wearing a blue dress that brought out the warmth in her skin tone. Her hair fell in soft curls around her shoulders, and she wore simple silver earrings. You look beautiful, Richard said. Thank you. You clean up pretty well yourself. The drive downtown was filled with easy conversation. They talked about their children, about work, about the approaching holidays. Nothing deep yet, just the comfortable rhythm of two people getting to know each other. The restaurant was elegant without being stuffy. Soft lighting, quiet music, attentive but not intrusive service. They were seated at a corner table, afforded privacy and a view of the city lights. Over appetizers they shared more of their histories. Richard talked about building his company, the lean years when he wasn't sure it would survive, the breakthrough that changed everything. Simone talked about her childhood in Georgia, about coming to the city for college, about falling in love with design and believing she could make it her career. Then I met Tyler's father, she said, her voice careful. Andre. He was charming, said all the right things. I was young and stupid enough to believe him. You weren't stupid. You were trusting. Maybe. Either way, I got pregnant and suddenly everything changed. Andre was supportive at first. He proposed, we made plans. Then I woke up one day and he was just gone. Clothes, money, everything. Vanished. That's terrible. It gets worse. I found out later he'd taken out credit cards in my name, maxed them out, destroyed my credit. By the time I figured it all out, I was 8 months pregnant, broke, and legally responsible for thousands in debt I didn't know existed. Richard's jaw tightened. Did you press charges? I tried. But he'd covered his tracks well. And honestly, by that point I was so focused on survival I didn't have energy to pursue legal action. I just needed to keep moving forward. So you did. While raising Tyler alone. I did what I had to do. Tyler needed me. Giving up wasn't an option. Richard reached across the table, covering her hand with his. You're one of the strongest people I've ever met. Simone's eyes glistened. I don't always feel strong. Most days I feel like I'm barely holding it together. That's strength. Real strength isn't never struggling. It's struggling and refusing to quit. Their entrees arrived, giving them a moment to collect emotions. As they ate, the conversation shifted to lighter topics. Tyler told me you taught him to play chess, Simone said. Basic moves. He's got good strategic thinking for a 6-year-old. He talks about you a lot. Asks when we can visit again, when Natalie can come over. I think he sees you as a father figure. The words hung between them, weighted with implication. How do you feel about that? Richard asked carefully. Honestly? It scares me. Tyler's already been abandoned once. If things don't work out between us, if he gets attached and then loses you. I understand that concern. But I'm not Andre. I don't make commitments lightly, and I don't walk away from people I care about. I want to believe that. Then believe it. I'm here because I want to be. Because I see something worth investing in. Not just with you, though you're certainly a huge part. But with Tyler too. That kid is special, and he deserves people in his life who show up. Simone blinked rapidly, fighting tears. You're making it very hard not to fall for you. Good. Because I'm already halfway there myself. After dinner, they walked through the downtown streets. Christmas lights decorated every surface, creating a magical atmosphere. Other couples strolled past, bundled in coats, breath fogging in the cold air. I haven't done this in so long, Simone said. Just walked around, enjoyed a city at night. There's never been time. We should make time. Life's too short to skip the nice moments. They found themselves at a small park, empty except for the two of them. String lights hung in the trees, creating a canopy of stars. In the center of the park, a small frozen pond reflected the lights. This is beautiful, Simone breathed. It is. But Richard was looking at her, not the scenery. Simone caught his gaze. What? Just memorizing this moment. In case it's important later. You think it will be? I think it already is. They stood in the cold, looking at each other. The moment stretched, neither wanting to break the spell. Finally, Simone said, we should probably head back. My neighbor can only watch Tyler until 11. Of course. On the drive home, Simone was quiet. Richard glanced at her occasionally, wondering what she was thinking. I had a wonderful time tonight, she finally said. Better than wonderful, actually. I can't remember the last time I felt this hopeful. Me too. But I need to be honest about something. I'm scared. Really scared. Of getting hurt, of Tyler getting hurt. Of messing this up or moving too fast or making bad decisions. All of that is normal. I'm scared too. You are. Terrified. Beverly was my whole world. Losing her nearly destroyed me. Opening myself up to that possibility again, to caring that deeply and risking that much loss, it's the scariest thing I can imagine. So why do it? Because the alternative is worse. Living half a life, keeping everyone at arm's length, never risking anything. That's not living. That's just existing. They pulled up to Simone's building. She made no move to leave the car. Can I ask you something? She said. Anything. What do you want from this? From me, from us? If you could write the ending, what would it look like? Richard thought carefully. Honestly? I don't know exactly. But I know I want you in my life. I know I want to see where this goes. Beyond that, I think we figure it out as we go. That's it? No grand plan? Plans are overrated. Life rarely follows them anyway. Simone smiled. Fair point. She opened the car door, then paused. Thank you for tonight. For dinner, for the conversation, for being patient with me. Thank you for giving this a chance. She leaned over and kissed his cheek. Good night, Richard. Good night, Simone. He watched her walk into her building, waited until she waved from her window, then drove home. At home, he found Natalie still awake, reading in bed under her covers with a flashlight. You're supposed to be asleep. I know. But I wanted to hear about your date. Was it good? Richard sat on the edge of her bed. It was very good. Are you going to go out with Miss Simone again? I hope so. Good. Because she makes you smile. Like really smile. Not the pretend smile you use when you're sad but trying to be happy for me. Richard's chest tightened. You noticed that? I always noticed. But I didn't say anything because I didn't want to make you more sad. He pulled his daughter into a hug. You are the most amazing kid in the entire world. You know that. I know. You tell me all the time. Over the next few weeks, Richard and Simone developed a routine. Dinner once a week, just the two of them. Family outings on weekends with both children. Long phone conversations after the kids were in bed. They talked about everything. Their dreams, their fears, their pasts and hopes for the future. They argued occasionally about politics or parenting approaches, but always with respect, always willing to hear the other's perspective. At work, their relationship remained professional. Simone reported to Janet, not Richard. She earned a promotion based solely on merit, her exceptional work speaking for itself. Richard watched her confidence grow. She spoke up in meetings, volunteered for challenging projects, became a respected voice in the marketing department. You were right, Janet told Richard one day. Best hire we've made in years. I don't know how Grace found her, but remind me to give that woman a bonus. Richard just smiled. Christmas approached rapidly. On Christmas Eve, both families attended church services together. Tyler and Natalie sat between their parents, looking angelic in their fancy clothes. After the service, standing outside under falling snow, Tyler tugged Richard's sleeve. Mr. Richard? Can I ask you something? Of course, buddy. Are you and my mom boyfriend and girlfriend? Richard glanced at Simone, who looked equally startled by the direct question. We're figuring that out, Richard said honestly. But we care about each other a lot. How would you feel if we were? Tyler thought seriously. I think it would be okay. Because you're nice to my mom. And you don't make her cry like my dad did. I never want to make your mom cry. Good. Then it's okay with me. Natalie joined the conversation. It's okay with me too. In case anyone was wondering. The adults laughed, the tension broken by childhood honesty. That night, after the children were in bed, Richard and Simone sat in his living room. The Christmas tree lights cast a soft glow over everything. So, Simone said, I guess the kids have spoken. They have. But what do you think? I think we've been dating for a month. I think we're past the getting to know you stage. And I think yes, we're boyfriend and girlfriend if we want to use those labels. Do you want to? Simone moved closer to him on the couch. I do. I want to try this for real. No more hesitation, no more holding back. I want to see where this goes. Richard cupped her face in his hands. I want that too. This time when they kissed, it was real. Not a peck on the cheek, not a tentative exploration. Real, deep, full of promise and possibility. When they finally broke apart, both were breathless. Wow, Simone whispered. Yeah, Richard agreed. Wow. They sat together in the quiet, wrapped in each other's arms, watching the Christmas lights twinkle. Outside, snow continued to fall, blanketing the world in white. Felt like a new beginning. Not erasing the past but building something new alongside it. And for the first time in 3 years, Richard felt truly, completely happy. January brought routine. Richard and Simone were officially a couple, though they kept things low-key at the office. No public displays, nothing that would invite speculation or gossip. But people noticed anyway. The way they looked at each other during company meetings. The coordinated family outings on weekends. Tyler and Natalie's constant talk about being almost siblings. 3 months into their relationship, Grace pulled Richard aside. We need to talk about perception management. What do you mean? I mean that people are starting to piece things together. The timing of Simone's hiring, the speed of her promotion, your relationship. Some employees are asking questions. Richard's jaw tightened. Her promotion was earned. Janet recommended it based purely on performance. I know that. You know that. But not everyone knows that. And in the absence of information, people create narratives. Some of those narratives aren't flattering. What are they saying? That Simone got her job because you were interested in her. That her promotion was based on personal relationships rather than merit. That she's receiving special treatment. Richard felt anger rise. That's completely false. Maybe. But perception shapes reality. If enough people believe it, it becomes true regardless of facts. So what do? Be transparent. Tell the real story. The grocery store, the job opportunity, everything. Let people understand the actual timeline and motivations. Right now they're filling in blanks with assumptions. Give them truth instead. Richard thought about this. Going public with the full story meant exposing Simone's vulnerable moment, potentially embarrassing her. But the alternative was letting false narratives damage her reputation. I need to talk to Simone first. That evening, Richard brought it up over dinner. They developed a routine of eating together at least twice a week, alternating between his house and her apartment. Grace thinks we should tell people the truth, he said. The full story about how we met, why I hired you, all of it. Simone set down her fork. Why? Because people are talking. Making assumptions that aren't true. It's affecting your professional reputation. What kind of assumptions? Richard told her what Grace had said. Simone's face hardened with each word. So people think I slept my way into my job. Some might be thinking that direction. But it's all speculation based on incomplete information. And you think telling them I was a charity case is better? You weren't a charity case. You were someone dealing with difficult circumstances who received a single act of kindness, then earned everything else through skill and hard work. Simone stood pacing the kitchen. I knew this would happen. I knew people would assume the worst. That's why I was so angry when you first told me about the grocery store. Because it taints everything I've accomplished. It doesn't have to. Not if we control the narrative. There's no controlling it, Richard. Once people know I was the poor single mother you helped, that's all they'll see. Every achievement becomes suspect. Every promotion becomes about our relationship rather than my work. So what's the alternative? Let false rumors spread. Maybe the alternative is I quit. Find a job somewhere else where my reputation isn't compromised. You'd leave because people are being judgmental? I'd leave to protect what I've built. My professional credibility matters. They stared at each other across the kitchen, tension crackling between them. Finally, Richard said quietly, I can't tell you what to do, but I can tell you that running rarely solves anything. And that the people saying these things don't know you, don't know your work ethic or talent. Their opinions don't define you. Easy for you to say. You've never had to prove yourself. You're the CEO. Everyone assumes you earned your position. That's not true. I've been doubted plenty of times. People assume I got lucky, that I inherited wealth, that I'm just another rich kid playing businessman. I've had to prove myself over and over. Simone softened slightly. I just don't want to be defined by that moment. The grocery store moment. I was at my lowest and now it might become public knowledge. What if we reframe it? What if instead of being about you at your lowest, it's about both of us choosing human connection and kindness? About seeing each other clearly and building something real? That's a nice story. But will people believe it? Some will. Some won't. But the people who matter, who actually know us, they'll believe it. After a long silence, Simone said, let me think about it. Don't do anything yet. Just let me process. The next week was tense. Richard and Simone maintained their relationship, but the ease between them had fractured. The weight of other people's opinions pressed down on what had been light and hopeful. Then something happened that forced the issue. Someone created an anonymous workplace forum post. Richard first heard about it when Grace rushed into his office, her face grim. You need to see this. She showed him her phone. A post on an internal message board. Question for everyone. Does anyone else think it's suspicious that Simone Crawford got hired and promoted so quickly? Rumor is she's dating the CEO. Seems like a conflict of interest. How are the rest of us supposed to compete if some people get special treatment? The post had 37 comments already, a mix of people defending Simone and others piling on with speculation. Richard felt sick. Who posted this? It's anonymous. I'm trying to track the IP, but it might take time. Take it down. Now. I can't. It doesn't technically violate our forum guidelines. And taking it down might make things worse, Make it look like we're covering something up. Then what do we do? Respond. Publicly. Tell the truth. Richard found Simone in her office. Her face was blotchy, eyes red. She'd obviously been crying. You saw it, Richard said. Everyone saw it. Janet came by to check on me. Half the department has been staring at me all morning. I'm so sorry. This is exactly what I was afraid of. Now everyone thinks I'm using you, that I didn't earn anything. Then we tell them the truth. We explain everything. And reveal that I was so poor I couldn't afford groceries? That you hired me out of pity? That's not what happened. That's what they'll hear. Richard sat down heavily. Simone, we're at a crossroads. We can let this false narrative define us, or we can take control. I know it's scary. I know it feels exposing. But sometimes the only way through is straight ahead. Simone wiped her eyes. What exactly are you proposing? A company-wide email. From both of us. Telling the real story, the complete timeline. Explaining that you were hired based on merit, that our relationship developed separately, that every promotion was earned. We lay it all out there, cards on the table. That's going to be humiliating. Maybe. Or maybe it'll be empowering. Maybe taking ownership of the story robs it of power. Simone was quiet for a long time. Finally she nodded. Okay, let's do it. But I write my part. I tell my own story. Absolutely. They spent the afternoon crafting the email. Richard explained his perspective. Seeing someone in need, choosing to act, creating an opportunity while ensuring it remained legitimate. Simone wrote about her circumstances, her qualifications, her determination to succeed regardless of how the door opened. The final email was honest, vulnerable, and powerful. Grace reviewed it, made minor suggestions, then helped them send it to the entire company. The response was immediate. Within an hour, Richard's inbox flooded with replies. Most were supportive. Thank you for your honesty. This makes me proud to work for a company led by someone who cares about people. Simone, your work has been exceptional. Anyone with eyes can see you earned your place here. This is what leadership looks like: transparency, vulnerability, and integrity. But some responses were cruel. Still seems like special treatment to me. So she got hired because the CEO felt sorry for her. How is that merit-based? This is exactly why workplace relationships are problematic. Richard wanted to respond to every negative comment, defend Simone from every attack. But Grace stopped him. Let the positive voices drown out the negative. You've said your piece. Now let the work speak for itself. That evening, Richard went to Simone's apartment. She opened the door looking exhausted but oddly peaceful. How are you? He asked. Surprisingly okay. Janet told me today that she's had multiple people reach out to her specifically to praise my work. The head of product development wants to collaborate on the next campaign. Even the CFO sent me an email saying my designs have contributed measurably to increased engagement. See? Your work speaks for itself. It does. And you know what else? Telling the truth was actually freeing. I'm not hiding anymore. Everyone knows my story now, and I survived it. I'm still standing. Richard pulled her into a hug. You're more than standing. You're thriving. The next few weeks proved the email had been the right call. The anonymous forum post was drowned out by public support. Simone's next project received widespread praise within the company. Janet submitted her for an industry award, which she won. At the award ceremony, Simone stood on stage accepting her trophy. She looked out at the audience, found Richard's face in the crowd, and smiled. In her acceptance speech, she said, "This award represents more than design skills. It represents resilience, the power of second chances, and the importance of people who believe in you even when circumstances suggest they shouldn't. I'm grateful to work for a company that values talent over credentials, potential over pedigree. Thank you." The applause was thunderous. After the ceremony, at the reception, multiple people approached Simone. Other women in the industry, many with their own stories of struggle and perseverance. "You inspired me," one woman said. "I've been afraid to pursue opportunities because my resume has gaps. But watching you succeed despite hardship gave me courage." Richard watched from across the room as Simone connected with person after person. This was bigger than just their story now. It had become about possibility, about refusing to be defined by circumstances. Later that night, back at Richard's house, they sat on the porch. The spring air was warm, carrying the scent of blooming flowers. "I'm proud of you," Richard said, "for being brave enough to tell your story. For not letting fear win. I'm proud of us. For figuring this out together. For not letting other people's opinions tear us apart. We make a good team. We do. Simone took his hand. I love you. I don't think I've said that yet, but I do. I love you. Richard's heart swelled. I love you too. So much. They sat in the quiet, hands intertwined, watching stars emerge in the darkening sky. The truth had been hard, exposure had been painful, but they'd emerged stronger. Sometimes the only way to truly be free is to stop hiding. To stand in your truth and let it be seen regardless of how others might judge. They'd done that. Together. And they'd survived. More than survived. They'd thrived. Spring blossomed into summer. Richard and Simone's relationship deepened, moving from tentative exploration to genuine partnership. In June, Simone's lease was up. She'd been saving money, planning to find a better apartment in a safer neighborhood. But Richard had a different suggestion. Move in with me, he said one evening over dinner. Simone nearly dropped her fork. What? Move in. You and Tyler. We have plenty of space. The kids already want to be together constantly. It makes sense. Richard, that's a huge step. I know. But we're already spending most nights together anyway. Tyler has his own toothbrush at my place. Your clothes are in my closet. Why maintain two households when we're functionally already living together? Simone set down her wine glass. Because moving in together is a statement. It's telling the world, telling our children, that this is serious and permanent. It is serious. And I'd like it to be permanent. You would. Richard reached into his pocket, then stopped. Actually, this isn't how I planned this conversation. Can we pause? Pause what? What's in your pocket? Nothing. Ignore that. Let's talk about the moving in thing first. But Simone was already putting pieces together. Her eyes widened. Richard Bennett, do you have a ring in your pocket right now? Maybe. Maybe? Okay, yes. But I was going to do this properly. Take you somewhere special, make a whole thing of it. This wasn't supposed to happen over Tuesday night takeout. Simone laughed, a sound of pure joy. Tuesday night takeout is perfect. It's real life, not some staged romantic moment. Richard pulled out the small velvet box. I was going to wait until your birthday next month. I had this whole plan. Plans change. Open the box. He did. Inside sat a simple but elegant diamond ring, the stone catching the light. Simone Crawford, I love you. I love your strength, your determination, your huge heart. I love how you parent Tyler with such fierce devotion. I love how you make Natalie laugh, how you've become part of our family so completely it feels like you were always meant to be there. Will you marry me? Simone's eyes filled with tears. Yes. Absolutely yes. Richard slipped the ring on her finger. It fit perfectly. They kissed, then laughed, then kissed again. We should tell the kids, Simone said. Right now. Why wait? They called Tyler and Natalie downstairs. Both children looked worried, sensing something big. Are we in trouble? Tyler asked. No, buddy. Actually, we have good news. Miss Simone and I are getting married. For a moment, both children just stared. Then Natalie shrieked with excitement. Really? Really truly? Really truly, Simone confirmed. Tyler looked between them. So you're going to be my dad? Richard knelt down to Tyler's level. If you'll let me. I can't replace your biological father, but I'd be honored to be your dad in every way that matters. Tyler threw his arms around Richard's neck. Yes. Please, yes. Natalie hugged Simone. Does this mean Tyler's my brother now? Not technically, but close enough. Good. I've always wanted a sibling. They ordered celebratory dessert and stayed up late, making plans. The wedding would be small, intimate. Immediate family and close friends only. Nothing extravagant, just a celebration of commitment. Simone and Tyler moved in 3 weeks later. Watching Tyler explore his new room, Richard felt something settle in his chest. Completeness. This was his family now. Simone, Tyler, Natalie. Different from what he'd had with Beverly, but no less real, no less precious. The wedding took place in September, exactly 1 year after the grocery store encounter. They held it in Richard's backyard, under a white tent strung with lights. 50 guests watched as Richard and Simone exchanged vows they'd written themselves. I promise to see you, Richard said. Really see you even when you're struggling or scared or trying to hide. I promise to create opportunities but let you walk through doors on your own. I promise to be your partner, not your savior, because you've never needed saving. You've always been strong enough on your own. Simone's voice was thick with emotion as she spoke. I promise to trust you. To believe in your intentions even when I'm scared. I promise to let you help without feeling diminished. I promise to build this life alongside you as equals, as partners, as best friends. You saw me when I felt invisible, and I'll spend the rest of my life showing you that faith was warranted. They exchanged rings. The officiant pronounced them married. Tyler and Natalie cheered louder than anyone. At the reception, Richard's mother pulled him aside. Your father and I weren't sure about this at first. Everything happened so fast. But watching you two together, seeing how happy you are, I understand now. You found something real. I did, Mom. Beverly would be happy for you. I know that for certain. She'd want you to love again, to build a full life. I hope so. I know so. She loved you too much to want you alone forever. Later, dancing with Simone under the lights while their children played nearby, Richard felt peace. Not the peace of forgetting the past, but the peace of honoring it while embracing the future. What are you thinking? Simone asked. That I'm grateful. For Natalie's compassion, for that moment in the grocery store, for every step that led us here. Even the hard steps? Especially those. They taught us to value this. In October, Richard and Simone had an idea. They were sitting at breakfast, reading news about families struggling with rising costs, when Simone said, "We should do something." Like what? Create something sustainable. Not just one-time help, but real opportunities for families in situations like I was in. Job training, childcare assistance, mentorship. Richard set down his coffee. A foundation. Exactly. We have resources. We have our story. We could use both to make a real difference. Within 2 months, the Bennett Crawford Family Foundation was established. Its mission: providing career training, job placement, and support services to single parents struggling to make ends meet. They partnered with local community colleges, offering scholarships. They created a job board connecting skilled workers with opportunities. They provided childcare stipends so parents could pursue education without worrying about their children's safety. Simone designed all the foundation's materials. Tyler and Natalie helped pack supply boxes for families in need. Richard leveraged his business connections to create partnerships and funding streams. The foundation's first class graduated in December, 25 single parents who'd completed career training programs. At the graduation ceremony, a woman named Patricia approached Simone. 2 years ago I was you, Patricia said. Standing in a store, unable to afford food, wondering how I'd survive. Today I start a job as a medical billing specialist. I have benefits, stability, hope. Thank you for creating this. Simone hugged her, tears streaming. You did this. You put in the work. We just opened a door. You opened more than a door. You opened a future. That night, at home with her family, Simone reflected on how much had changed. 1 year ago, she'd been counting pennies and wondering how to give Tyler a decent Christmas. Now she was married, secure, using her experience to help others. What are you thinking? Richard asked, finding her standing by the window. About gratitude. About how one act of kindness created ripples we couldn't have imagined. The best things usually do. Natalie wandered in, followed by Tyler. Both wore pajamas and carried books. Story time? Tyler asked hopefully. Absolutely, Richard said. Pick your favorite. They all climbed onto the big couch, children between parents. Richard read while Simone stroked Tyler's hair and Natalie leaned against her shoulder. This was family. Not perfect, not without challenges, but real and loving and chosen. As Richard read the final lines of the story, Tyler yawned. This is better than any story. Our real life, I mean. It's the best story. It is, Natalie agreed. We got our happy ending. Not ending, Simone corrected gently. Happy beginning. This is just the start. Later, after the children were asleep, Richard and Simone stood in the kitchen. He pulled her close, swaying to music only they could hear. Thank you, he whispered. For what? For taking a chance. For being brave. For choosing this family. Thank you for seeing me. For believing I was worth the effort. They stood in the quiet, wrapped in each other's arms. Outside, the first snow of the season began to fall, blanketing the world in white. Inside, warmth and love and the promise of tomorrow filled every corner. This was home. This was family. This was everything. A year later, the foundation was thriving. They'd helped over 200 families find stable employment and housing. Local news had covered their work, leading to increased donations and volunteer support. On a cold Saturday in November, Richard and Simone returned to Sterling Grove Market for the first time since that pivotal day 2 years ago. Why are we here? Simone asked as Richard parked. You'll see. Inside, the store looked exactly the same. Same layout, same bright lights, same smell of baked goods and fresh produce. But everything was different now. Mr. Patterson spotted them immediately. His face broke into a huge smile. "Mr. Bennett, Miss Crawford. I heard you might be stopping by." "Hello, Mr. Patterson. Thanks for setting this up." "My pleasure. It's ready whenever you are." Richard led Simone to the front of the store. Near the register stood a small crowd. Employees from their foundation, families they'd helped, local media representatives. A banner hung across the wall, "Holiday Blessing Program in honor of small miracles." Simone's hand flew to her mouth. "Richard, what is this?" "2 years ago someone helped us here. Today we're making it permanent. Sterling Grove Market has agreed to partner with our foundation. Every day from now until Christmas we'll sponsor families. They'll come in, get what they need for a holiday meal, no questions asked. Just like what happened to us." Tears streamed down Simone's face. "You're recreating that moment." "I'm paying it forward." "We both are." Mr. Patterson stepped forward with a microphone. "Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for being here. 2 years ago, I witnessed an act of kindness in this store. A man saw a family in need and quietly helped without seeking recognition. Today, that same man and his wife are extending that kindness to our entire community. It's my honor to announce the official launch of the Holiday Blessing Program." Applause filled the store. Shoppers who'd been going about their business stopped to watch. Simone stepped forward. "Can I say something?" Richard handed her the microphone. 2 years ago, I stood in this store counting pennies, unable to buy my son a turkey. I was exhausted, scared, and felt invisible. Then something miraculous happened. Someone saw me, truly saw me, and chose to help. That single act of kindness changed everything. Not just because of the food, though that mattered, but because it reminded me that people care, that help exists, that hope is real. Today, my husband and I want to create that moment for others. If you're struggling, if you're scared, if you feel invisible, please know. You are seen, you matter, and help is available. This program is for you." More applause, many teary eyes in the crowd. The first family stepped forward, a young mother with 3 small children. Store employees guided them through the aisles, helping them select everything needed for a complete holiday meal. Richard and Simone watched hand in hand. Tyler and Natalie appeared, having been waiting with Richard's parents. Both children wore foundation t-shirts and carried baskets of supplies. "Can we help?" Natalie asked. "Absolutely," Simone said. The children distributed packages to families. Warm hats, gloves, toys for kids, information about foundation services. Tyler approached one little boy, maybe 4 years old, and handed him a toy truck. "This is for you. Merry Christmas." The boy's face lit up. His mother, fighting tears, mouthed thank you to Tyler. "You're welcome," Tyler said. "My mom says everyone deserves to feel special at Christmas." Richard watched his stepson, pride filling his chest. This kid, who'd once been the one receiving help, was now giving it forward. The cycle of compassion continuing. As the event wound down, a reporter approached Richard and Simone for an interview. "Mr. Bennett, what inspired this program?" Richard glanced at Simone. She nodded permission for him to tell the story. 2 years ago, I was shopping here with my daughter. She overheard a mother tell her son they couldn't afford a turkey. My daughter asked me to help, so I did. Anonymously. That mother standing next to me right now is now my wife. And that moment of connection, that single act of compassion, transformed both our lives. The reporter's eyes widened. "This is your story? You were that family?" "I was," Simone confirmed. "I was the mother counting pennies, worried I'd let my son down. And the help I received didn't just feed us that day. It gave me hope to keep going, to keep trying. Eventually, it led to opportunities that changed everything. And now you're extending that same help to others." "Now we're paying forward what we received," Richard said. "We're creating opportunities for people to find their own paths forward. Because that's what real help does. It doesn't create dependency. It creates possibility." That night, the story aired on local news. Within days, it went national. Donations poured into the foundation. Other stores in other cities contacted them about creating similar programs. Richard and Simone were invited to speak at conferences, to share their story and encourage other businesses to invest in community support. But through it all, they remained grounded. Every week, they volunteered at the foundation. They met with families, listened to stories, connected people with resources. On Christmas Eve, 1 year after their wedding, both families gathered at Richard and Simone's home. Richard's parents, his sister and her family, Simone's mother who'd flown in from Georgia. The house overflowed with love and laughter. After dinner, as everyone gathered around the tree, Richard stood up. "I want to say something. 2 years ago I was lost. Successful professionally but emotionally adrift. Then my daughter asked me to help a stranger, and that simple act led to all of this. Simone, you and Tyler didn't just join our family. You completed it. You reminded me that life continues, that love is possible, that beautiful things can grow from moments of compassion. Simone stood, joining him. And you reminded me that accepting help isn't weakness. That people can be trustworthy. That second chances exist. Our story started with a grocery store turkey, but it became so much more. It became about seeing and being seen, about courage and vulnerability, about building something real. Tyler raised his hand. Can I say something? Of course, buddy. I just want to say thank you. To Mr. Richard for becoming my dad. To Natalie for being the best sister ever. To everyone for making this the best family. And I want to say that even though we started with nothing, now we have everything that matters. There wasn't a dry eye in the room. Later, after everyone had gone to bed, Richard found Simone standing in the kitchen, looking out at the snow-covered yard. What are you thinking about? He asked, wrapping his arms around her from behind. About that day in the grocery store. About how close I came to giving up. I was so tired, so defeated. If Tyler hadn't asked about the turkey, if I just walked out without saying anything, none of this would have happened. But you did speak. Tyler did ask. And we were there to hear it. Do you believe in fate? I believe in choices. I believe Natalie chose compassion. I chose to act on it. You chose to accept help, then to trust me later. Every step was a choice, and those choices led us here. I'm glad we made them. Every single one. Me too. They stood in the quiet, watching snowflakes fall. Inside their home, their family slept peacefully. Two children who'd found each other, two parents who'd built something beautiful from broken pieces. The next morning, Christmas Day, the family exchanged gifts. Tyler gave Simone a handmade card with a drawing of their family. This is us, he explained. Complete. Natalie gave Richard a photo album she'd created, documenting their journey from that first Thanksgiving to now. On the final page, she'd written, some families are born. Some families are chosen. Ours is both. I love you, Daddy. Thank you for teaching me that helping people matters. Richard couldn't speak around the lump in his throat. He just hugged his daughter tight. That afternoon, they all went to the church where they'd met that first Thanksgiving. The foundation was hosting a community meal, serving hundreds of families. Richard watched Simone move through the crowd, greeting people, listening to stories. She'd completely transformed from the scared, exhausted woman he'd first seen. She was confident now, radiant, using her experience to light the way for others. Tyler and Natalie worked side by side, serving food, clearing tables, making people smile. They'd inherited the lesson. Privilege comes with responsibility, and happiness grows when shared. Pastor Williams approached Richard. You've done something remarkable here. Built something that will outlast all of us. We just open doors. People walk through on their own. That's all any of us can do. Open doors, shine lights, offer hands. The rest is up to individuals. But you've created an opportunity system, not just charity. That's the difference between helping and transforming. As the day wound down, Richard gathered his family. One more stop, he said. They drove to Sterling Grove Market, now closed for the holiday. But Mr. Patterson had agreed to meet them there. Inside the empty store, they walked to the exact spot where Simone had stood 2 years ago. The spot where everything changed. This is where it started, Richard said. Where one moment of vulnerability met one moment of compassion, and created something neither of us could have imagined. Simone took his hand. It's where I learned to accept help. Where I learned that asking for support doesn't diminish you. And where I learned that sometimes the smallest gestures have the biggest impacts, Richard added. Tyler looked up at them. Is this why you brought us here? To remember? To remember and to honor it, Simone said. Your dad and I could have forgotten this moment once life got better. We could have moved on and never looked back. But we believe in remembering where we came from. In honoring the struggles that shaped us. Because they made you strong, Natalie said. Exactly. They stood in silence for a moment, each lost in thought. Then Tyler spoke. I'm glad we were poor. I know that sounds weird, but I'm glad. Because if we weren't, we wouldn't have met you guys. And I wouldn't have Natalie as my sister or Mr. Richard as my dad. So maybe being poor wasn't fun, but it led to something amazing. Simone knelt down, cupping her son's face. You're right, sweetheart. Our struggles had purpose. They brought us to exactly where we needed to be. As they left the store, Richard looked back one final time. That space, that ordinary grocery store, had been the launching point for an extraordinary journey. He thought about all the families they'd helped through the foundation. Each one had their own grocery store moment, their own point of crisis. And each one was finding their way forward, just like Simone had. That was the real gift. Not just helping individuals but creating a system of support that would outlast any single act of kindness. Driving home through the snowy streets, Christmas lights twinkling in every window, Richard felt complete. Not because life was perfect or problems didn't exist, but because he'd found purpose beyond profit, connection beyond commerce, family beyond blood. At home they built a fire and curled up together. Tyler fell asleep against Richard's shoulder. Natalie dozed on Simone's lap. The adults sat in comfortable silence, watching the flames dance. "I love you," Simone whispered. "I love you too. Do you think Beverly would have approved of us, of all this?" Richard thought about his first wife, her generous heart, her belief in helping others. "She would have loved you. Would have loved what we've built. She'd be proud." "I hope so. I never want to dishonor her memory." "You honor it by living fully, by being a good partner, by helping others. That's what she would have wanted." Simone smiled. "Then we're doing okay. We're doing more than okay. We're thriving." Outside, snow continued to fall. Inside, warmth and love created a perfect sanctuary. This family, born from crisis and compassion, built on honesty and hope, was proof that beautiful things could emerge from the darkest moments. All it took was someone brave enough to ask for help, someone compassionate enough to give it, and two people willing to build something real from a single moment of connection. That grocery store turkey had fed them for one day. But the lessons learned, the family formed, the foundation created would feed hundreds, thousands for generations to come. And it all started with a little girl who chose to see, a father who chose to act, and a mother who chose to accept help when she needed it most. Sometimes the smallest moments create the biggest miracles. Sometimes asking for help is the bravest thing you can do. Sometimes strangers become family. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, a turkey at Thanksgiving becomes the beginning of everything that matters.